Welcome to Tuesdays with Andrea. It's the inspiration station for everyday people guiding humanity forward. I'm your host, Andrea Rios McMillan, and every week I pursue conversations that matter with people who can relate to the common struggles we all face. You'll get to know the person behind the profession and find commonality with people of all ages, cultures, and backgrounds. Listen as friends, neighbors, and coworkers offer meaningful, personal explorations of modern life and the values we hold dear, all for the purpose of strengthening and uplifting others. Hey everyone, this is me, Andrea. Thank you for tuning in. This is my first podcast. I am so excited. My special guest is my dad. His name is Dr. Jason D, and he is joining me today because he outlasted my mom. That's why he's here.
Hey, winning by default is still winning.
Yes.
Thank you.
So my mom was supposed to come, and it took me so long to get my audio and video set up just the right way. And then, of course, right when we started, shit hit the fan. So basically, it took almost 3 hours for us to get started. So thank you for coming in after working a full day. I appreciate it. And we're going to jump right in.
Okay.
All right. So, Dr. Jason D, how did you become my dad?
It's a long story. And when you think about it, it was a lot of things that just happened to be at the right time, at the right place. Mm-hmm. I married my high school sweetheart, and we had 16 wonderful years together, married. We had 2 wonderful children. And at the time, I think things were going great, right up until I found out that she had metastatic lung cancer. She'd never been a smoker. She'd been fairly healthy, and it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. We did the best we could for 3 years, but finally, after a long battle, she passed away. So I was kind of on my own with 2 kids, Maddie and Michael, 8 and 6, and so wondering what the next step in my life was going to be. When I was going through it all, and I swore I would never get married again, and I thought that was, I would be happy with that way. But I realized I wasn't a very good mom and dad to my kids, and I wasn't very happy that way either.
Yeah.
And I would go to work out every morning because it would kind of clear my head, and then I would get ready for the day. And the coffee shop that I went to afterwards, I met Delia. She was the barista there. And she saw, I never talked about, what was going on in my life. She just knew that I was there, and she saw that I was a little down. So after she gave me my coffee, she would ask me how my day was, or I would just reply some sort of like bland pleasantries and just sit down there. But she still knew that I wasn't quite right for some reason. Mm-hmm. And she would sit down and she'd just say hi to me and talk to me when she had a break. And once in a while, she'd bring me a piece of toast, and we'd just chat for a little bit. And this went on for about 6 months until one day that she told me that she was planning on going on a mission trip. She needed a health exam before she went on the mission trip, and had to get her shots before going to Haiti. And she asked if I could do that. And I said, sure, I'll take care of that. And she come on by. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, this is, and at all this time, I learned a little bit more about her, that she had twins when she was 17. She'd raised them all on her own, put herself through school to be a barber, and had raised 2 college-educated daughters who had careers of their own. And one was married, happily married with a wonderful boy, and the other one was a teacher at Niqua, and they were both doing well. And somehow she's managed to get through all that, despite a couple of, actually 3 husbands that really weren't there. I was number 4.
Number 4, and it worked.
It worked out great. So, and I'm proud to be number 4. Thank you. And the last.
And the last.
So, and I thought, wow, what a wonderful human being. And then she asked me to be her doctor. And I was like, I really can't be her doctor because I want her to be in my life. So after I finished talking to her, I was still kind of confused. She visited me once, and I did the exam, and then I gave her the medicines and the shots and sent her on her way and said, look, I have to talk to you tonight. I called her later on. I said, look, I have to talk to you. And so I stopped. I said, okay if I stop by and say talk to you? And so she said, sure. So I stopped by and then told her, look, I can't be your doctor. And she told me, why not? Is there something wrong? I'm like, no, I think there's something special about you, and I want to get to know you better, but I can't do that as your physician. Mm-hmm. I want to do it as your friend first, and then maybe if there's something more, we could be something more. That's how I met your mother. That's a long-winded way of saying that's how I met your mother.
And when did you know
you were going to marry her?
I wish I had some sort of great, funny, romantic anecdote that would say that, oh, wow, that's when I knew she was the one, right? But it was more, you have to be with someone for a year and you see their ups and downs. You see what makes them laugh or cry. You see what makes them happy or sad or angry. And you realize, and they see and they see you for what you are too. And they realize that, you know what, we work well together, but more than that, we bring out the best and sometimes the worst in each other, but more often the best. And that's when you know that on the whole of it, this is the person for you. So if it sounds like some sort of mathematical equation, it isn't. It's just that it's a feeling you have when you look at the person and you're just hanging out with the person, looking them in the eye, and you're just watching a movie together, and you realize, you know, I could easily sit here at this park bench and with you forever, and I could easily sit here and watch TV with you forever, because I know that just being around you, I don't mind growing old. Because I know I'm not going to grow old alone. I'm not going to be afraid of like growing old or dying because I've got you around.
How did Michael and Maddie take it?
You know, I may not be the best person to ask about that, because when you're going through pain yourself, you kind of have a blind spot about what other people are doing.
Yeah.
I can only speculate afterwards. I thought that the thing is, I could see when Anne first passed away, Michael was the more emotional of the two, and he was sad, but he got it out of his system. And when he met Delia, mom, too, they call it, as they called her, he took to her pretty quickly, and he was good with it. And maybe because he was younger too. He took to her quickly, and they bonded well. Maddie was a tougher nut. She didn't show outward like grief as much as Michael did, although I knew she was hurting inside. I just didn't know how to get through to her or talk through her emotions, because I could barely talk through my own emotions.
Yeah.
So I think she kind of repressed it a little bit more. And so when Delia came around, she was enthusiastic at first, but then she's like, there's a little part of her that goes, well, what if this doesn't last? And the first time that they have a disagreement, it's like, wait, this isn't going to work out, Yeah. So it took her a little more time to bond. She eventually did, but I think she's still somebody that it takes her a little longer to to really, really bond. She doesn't bond as quickly, and I think she takes longer, but she does do it. It just takes her longer.
Well, I remember meeting you and Michael and Maddie, because I met you guys all three at the same time.
Oh.
And it was at Mom's house, and you guys came over, and she made my favorite meal. And I was just like, and I'm fine. I'll be there. And you guys came over, and I just remember Maddie clinging to her. And by that time, I guess they had already known each other and built up a rapport. And I just remember looking at Maddie and Mom, during, over the course of the night, and thinking, oh, they're going to be so great for each other. Because they, at that time, that was when Maddie, right before her kind of like high school and, rebellious years began. And she was just that little girl. And my mom is a daughter's mom, right?
Yeah.
With me and my sister. And it was the most beautiful thing. And I just remember in that moment thinking, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. Because she'd already kind of prepped my sister and I. And we were just kind of like, well, I hope,
All things considered, I would really say that Delia is the right kind of mom for Maddie. Even if Maddie doesn't know it, Oh,
I think Maddie knows it. I think it's hard, though, because when you're the daughter, and I guess there has to be some feelings of, you don't want to replace your parent. And here's another mom coming in, and you call her mom and not. And even with you, most of the time I call you, if we're at the house or something, I call you Jason.
Right.
When I introduce you to anyone, really, I always call you Dad, because you are a dad. You are like the dad, for me. And I'm so appreciative of that, because
Thanks.
almost all of our lives, We didn't have that stable, I guess, primary father figure always around.
Right.
And just to have you, even as an adult and just with the boys and, you know, as not only grandfather to them, but also just dad, and helping John and I like figure out carb decisions and home decisions. And then, you know, 2 weeks ago, you were helping us put in the hardwood, you know, the floors upstairs. And just those are the things that I value the most. And I just,
Thank you.
Yeah.
That I never mentioned it. I have to mention it. There was a richness to my life that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't had you. Mm-hmm. And we were watching an episode of like Chicago Fire or something like that, where this one of the paramedics finally meets her adoptive mom, and her mom is all apologetic about, you know, I was 16, I had to abandon you. And I looked at Delia, I was like, thank goodness, you know, you didn't give up, you know, Alex and Andrea for adoption when you were 17, because can you imagine how much less rich our lives would be right now? You know, so
No.
So I was like, thank goodness. And like, I got, you know, that God had her hang on to you like she did.
Because, she was thinking about what to do too as a teenager.
Oh, yeah. Right. And then, you know, there goes college, and all of a sudden you got to make a living.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a path not taken. But on the other hand, the way it worked out, I have to say that there's some divine hand in it that made us be together. And that's why I was like, well, I can't screw up God's gift to me, so I'm going to hang on to this.
I remember for a little while thinking, man, my mom was on, you know, when you as a child see your mom go through 3 marriages, mm-hmm. and, you know, you kind of lose, I don't want to say hope, but you're just not really optimistic about the number 4.
Right.
And you're certainly not sure. So
she's not that good at picking them, is what you're thinking.
No, you know what? No, it's not that she's not good at picking them, because she picked you.
That's true.
I think they're just incomplete or incompatible matches. Yeah, so that's how we became a family.
Yeah.
And now you guys are celebrating your 10-year anniversary.
Yep. So.
That's going to be fun.
That will be. Well, I'm looking forward to having all of you there, so it'll be fun for us to go there.
Yep. So let's move on. Tell me about your work. Tell me about what you do. Tell me about anything you want to talk about, really.
Well, I'm an internist. So my undergrad was at U of I down in Champaign, and I did my medical school at University of Illinois up in Chicago, and then my residency at Loyola. After residency, I settled in Naperville with DuPage Medical Group, and I work as an internal medicine physician in South Naperville, 103rd, 59th there. This will be my 25th year. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to stick with the same job, same location for 25 years, and things worked out really well in that respect for me. I've had the great fortune of being able to establish a practice and meet some wonderful folks and be able to like really put down roots somewhere and have a really wonderful population of people that I could meet and take care of. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things that I've, as a kid, we moved around a lot. My mom and dad, we immigrated from the Philippines. So
what age were you?
4. So we came.
Do you remember the Philippines at all?
Yes, it was hot, it was humid, and there were geckos and avocados. That's about it. So I'm sure there was a lot of beautiful things there. I just didn't notice them when I was a little kid.
Yeah. Have you been back there?
No, I haven't.
Any desire to?
One day, but it's not a burning desire for me. I'm ashamed to say it because all the family, all my cousins, they're here now.
Yeah.
So if I want to go, it's either in, you know, Chicago or Toronto or California. They're all there. Mm-hmm. So my family's here, and so therefore my home's here. Mm-hmm. I don't really feel to me, it's just a spot on the map now.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing
that you don't want to know your roots.
It was my roots when I was 4. My roots are really here in the Midwest. I mean, I grew up in the south side of Chicago. I mean, this is really where I went.
Did you grow up in the south side?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Palos, Oaklawn.
Okay.
I went to Marist High School, nice Catholic school. You know.
You guys grew up Catholic?
Yes.
I did not know this. Did you raise Michael and Hetty Catholic?
No, I didn't. My mom and dad weren't strictly Catholic. They were Christian. They sent me to a Catholic school because they thought I had a better education, and they were really, we're like all Asian parents. You got to have a good education. So of course they sent, they picked the best Catholic high school they could send me to, and they sent me there.
So how did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
Oh, it was because of the Asian vocational program where my mom and dad figured out that I was good at math and science. And so they told me I was going to be a doctor. And that was pretty much it. I did not want to be a doctor. I was thinking maybe if I could be, was going to be a police officer or a detective because I like solving things. Or a chef because I like to cook and create things. But I really didn't, I rebelled against that for a long time.
Do you regret it? Or do you regret not going into another profession?
No, I think about it, and I was like,
Really?
Maybe one of these days when I retire from being a doctor, if I'm still healthy enough, and if I stay in shape and I'm still healthy enough, maybe I could do something else with my life, and I'd love to try something different, something creative, right? If I'm not worried about having to like make a living, and I wanted to just create something, maybe I could cook or sculpt or draw or do something else.
Yeah, because you're a hobbyist.
Yeah, I like painting. I like painting miniatures. I like drawing. I like creating things. So it would be fun to do those sorts of things. And just for my own sake, I don't have to make a lot of money at it. It wouldn't matter really. It's just to make my own piece of art or something like that. It'd be just kind of cool.
Okay, so dream job, what would it be?
Dream job?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think it would be to be able to travel as a chef around the world.
Really?
Yeah. Because I could make things for folks, and then I could get to travel and see different people and different things. And while I'm doing that, I could learn about different places, and I could incorporate that into my food.
Yeah.
It's something that I could, and it'd be a different, you wouldn't always get, a thermidor oven or, the range that you want. You have to make do with what you got. What if you don't have fresh cream or something like that, but you still have to make a dessert? Well, then you've got to figure out other sources of sweeteners and creams and fats that you could make something out of, and then and it's a challenge. And I think it's like solving a puzzle, but also creating something beautiful. And I think those are the two things that I like doing anyway.
Yeah.
So that'd be my dream job.
So a chef. So when you retire, then you'll travel the world.
Yeah.
And cook.
Well, or take cooking classes.
Wait, do you think you'd stop working as a doctor? Like, would you retire as a doctor, or do you think you'd stop and maybe pursue something else?
I do love what I do for a living. I mean, because you get to help people and you still get to solve problems and you get to take care of folks, and that's always going to be a part of me. But to get the license and establish a practice and do the marketing and get and pay the bills and stuff like that. If I didn't need to do that.
I got your marketing on lock, okay?
Yeah.
And I got your marketing.
Well, I mean, and then dealing with insurance companies and billing and electronic medical records and paperwork and disability forms. Boy, there's a lot of stuff that I got, it's a couple hours every day that I do that's not related to patient care.
Yeah.
And it's like, well.
And that's changed probably in the last, 10 years?
It has. And it's like, maybe I don't want to deal with those things anymore because, and I just, would still like to do something and be a benefit to people and leave the world a little better than I'd found it. Because if I'm still able to, I'd still like to make the world a little better place. Mm-hmm. It's just that maybe I wouldn't like to deal with those sort of details anymore.
Yeah.
I guess there's, what I say is like, there's a difference between making a living and living, right?
Yeah.
So.
And your profession is making a living.
Right. It's making a living. I'm still living. It's just that you've also got to make a living, and that's the overhead you got to do when you're. Yeah. It's like you have a business and you've got to take care of the overhead, right? Mm-hmm. But one day when you make enough money and you don't have to worry about overhead quite so much, what are you going to do for a living? What gives purpose and meaning to your life? It's like, what kind of a person am I really then, right? I would like to be the kind of person that would always strive to be a better person, and that if you're really a Christian, you don't have to tell people that. You just have to act like that, and they can figure it out themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's way more believable. If you live like Jesus, in that you treat others as you would want to be treated yourself, and you strive to make the world like heaven on earth, then maybe people can figure it out themselves, and maybe they'll want to do it themselves too. And in that, you know, if God gave you some talents about like being able to help others and being creative, maybe I'll get a chance to use those too, and He'll still let me have enough energy and vitality to still, and resources to for my second act of my life to be able to do that.
Do you have any regrets at this point? Like when you look back on your life and, you know, your profession and your family?
Well, you know, I guess my only regret was that when I was going through my grief, I wish I could have been a little bit more aware of what Maddie and Michael were going through. And it's hard to explain, but you're living, but you're not really, you're just existing kind of. And so a lot of times I was kind of like, well, I got to get through this day at work, and I got to get through these papers, and I got to provide food, and I got to pick them up from school. And in all the I would get lost in the weeds of my life and not really see the big picture. And I wish I'd had, because if I could have, I would have been able to recognize the pain that Maddie and Michael were going through, and I didn't really pick up on it as well as I should have. I knew that I wasn't good at it, and I knew I needed somebody there. Hence, the part of the reason I was looking for somebody like Delia. But I wish I could have been better at it at the time too. You know.
Have you ever talked to them about that?
Michael, Maddie, not so much. You know. I grew up in a household that we didn't share our emotions a whole lot. I don't think my parents ever said "I love you" ever to me.
Really?
Yeah, but I knew they did.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it at the time, but now I know. Typical
Yeah.
Asian, strict, things like that. And I know that she loves me. It's just that it's not the kind that
Yeah.
it's not that expressive, right? So I never figured out how to do it myself, you know, until later on in life. I had to figure it out on my own.
Which is crazy, because to me, you are one of the most open and I would say emotionally aware people that I know.
Well, I mean, it was, I think my Asian childhood was pretty much like every other first generation immigrant Asian childhood.
Explain that to me, because I don't know what that's like. I only know what growing up Mexican is like.
Oh, well, for us, I mean, we came from the Philippines. I was 4 years old. My brother was 3. And, you know, we didn't know the language. So English was a second language for us at first. You couldn't tell that now because we've grown up here all the time. But we started off here, and my mom and dad, my dad had to work nights making teeth. He was a dentist in the Philippines, but that didn't count here. You had to take the test over again. My mom was a pharmacist, and that didn't count either. So she had to take pharmacy school over there too. So one of the two had to stay home and take care of us because we were little, and the other one would make a living to support us. So my dad made teeth during the daytime because he was good with his hands, and then he went to dental school at night. And so we lived out of a little one-studio apartment for a while until we got enough money and got an apartment with 2 bedrooms in Oak Park. And we lived there until my dad was robbed one day, and he got away, and they wanted him to buzz him up so they could rob us. But as he pretended to fumble for his keys, he ran inside the door, locked it, and ran upstairs, and saved us from getting robbed. So
Wow.
that's when we knew we kind of had to leave Oak Park at the time.
And now Oak Park is so safe.
Now it's all gentrified. It was not when we were there.
Crazy, yeah.
So anyway, and we would move from place to place, always getting a little bit better. My dad would finally finish school, and we would always find a little bit nicer place, and we'd move from town to town until, you know, we finally settled in Palos for a little while. And he became a dentist up in the north side. So all this time, you know, it meant my parents ingrained in my brother and I that we're making these sacrifices for you so that you could have a better life. So you're going to do your best, you're going to study hard, and you're going to be successful no matter what it is, right? So you're going to work hard. And that was it. And the way to success is education. You're going to go to college, you're going to go to graduate school, whatever it is, and you're going to be successful. And that was that. So that was my upbringing. And that's how they showed they loved you, because they sacrificed all this, and they pushed you to work hard. And that was my upbringing. It made my brother and I hardworking and determined. And high achievers. It didn't necessarily make us emotionally very open. We were polite, but outside of that, we didn't really know how to express our emotions or socialize all that much. And that was not until I went to college and met my first wife And then much later, when I met Delia, that I really opened up a lot more. So it's
evolving.
Yeah, you had to. I evolved a lot more, and it grew. And that's what I really am thankful for with Delia and the family, is that I really had to grow into the job.
Mm-hmm. How do you not take your work home with you, right? Because as a doctor, I mean, you see the spectrum.
Sure. You do take your work home with you. I mean, when I first started, you'd worry about stuff all the time. Did I make the right call? Did I give the right medicine? Was that too much? Or how did I miss that? And you'd think that all the time. And it still bugs me sometimes. But then the more experience you get, the more you realize, oh, wait, I've seen this before. Mm-hmm. Or I know how this one's going to go. Or, yeah, from my experience, I've been able to deal with this before. And I've seen this pain before,
Mm-hmm.
So the more experience you have and the more times you interact with folks and see this different spectrum of people, the less things are new to you. Mm-hmm. And then the less afraid you are of like meeting these situations then.
Yeah.
Then you go home at the end of the day thinking, okay, right, there's a lot of things in life that we don't know, and there's a lot of things you can't cure. Mm-hmm. But I think I've done the best that I could to treat it, and that's going to have to be good enough, and I'll be able to sleep on that. So I have a job where you get to meet all sorts of different people at their most intimate level. Maybe not their emotional level, but certainly their physical level, yeah. Right? And so you get to know folks on an intimate level about their body and also about their mind, their emotions and stuff like that. And it's a privilege. It's a wonderful privilege to get to know so many different people on that level and have them trust you and have them feel that you can help them, not just on a physical level, but on a emotional or maybe sometimes spiritual level, to live a better life, right? Mm-hmm. For me, that's what being a physician's all about. It's not about the drugs or the treatments or the surgeries. It's really about your life, right? It's about living your life and how you could do that to the best of your ability. Mm-hmm. And what I can do to help you do that. So you're having that journey together with all these folks. They grow old, you grow old too. Mm-hmm. And you're going to grow old with them, basically. Mm-hmm. And when they're gone, and one day you'll be gone too, and that's fine. You know that's just the way the cycle of life is, and it's kind of a beautiful thing to watch.
Mm-hmm. What if you have a patient who maybe they're not taking care of themselves, and when they're coming back and you realize the rate of healing or treatment isn't as it should be? Do you ever get frustrated with that? How do you deal with patients who maybe don't listen or
they don't understand what I'm trying to say? So if somebody doesn't do what you think would be the best course of action, what do you say? I teach medical students and nurse practitioners as well from like Rush and Chamberlain. I tell them that your job actually as a physician or a caregiver, you're in sales actually. And you've got to sell folks.
How so?
Oh, you have to sell folks on that this is the best course of treatment. There's a lot of alternative treatments out there. Come on.
I love alternative treatments. Don't get me wrong. I love alternative treatments.
So Western medicine isn't the only kind of medicine. There's plenty of alternative therapies. Ayurvedic, there's, acupuncture, there's herbal medicine.
I'm glad you're saying that because I think more people should be aware of that.
No, just because they walk into your office doesn't mean they live in a bubble and have never heard of these. As a matter of fact, they probably do some of these things. And sometimes my job as your physician is that, I know I'm aware of these other alternatives. You might want to go to a chiropractor for your back pain. As long as it doesn't hurt you, go right ahead, right? Let me just check and make sure you didn't bulge a disc so that when they adjust you don't make it worse. Mm-hmm. Okay, but then let me see if I can persuade you that this alternative with physical therapy, this alternative with maybe an epidural steroid injection, this alternative with maybe a laminectomy might be a good thing for you to do. It might be your best choice. Let me explain, And when folks don't agree with me, I wonder if it didn't do a good enough job explaining it, or they have a reason that they really don't want to do it. Like my uncle had this surgery and his back was bad forever, and it's a bad family experience, and I get it, Mm-hmm. And sometimes I won't be able to convince you of that, but hopefully more times than not during the course of our relationship together as my patient, maybe I'll get you to have enough good habits and point you in the right direction enough times that on the whole, your life will be better for it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. People aren't robots. You can't just punch them a few numbers and they'll do what you do. No, you can prescribe things, can suggest things. And on the whole, they're going to do it or not do it. Hopefully, if you have a good doctor-patient relationship, they'll listen to you, and they'll do it more often than not.
And I think a lot of people, at least from my perspective, we look at doctors as authority figures. And what you say is what I'm going to take.
Although I think we have to compete now, more so than we ever did, with other forms of information, right? There's the internet's got plenty of sources, some good, some not so good, right? And so hopefully I can help point you like, hey, this is a good source for it, or maybe this isn't such a good source for it. So and so we have to compete, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to be ready to be questioned, though. So you can't feel hurt about like somebody not agreeing with you, or somebody feeling they have a different source of information about it.
Yeah, just people come in with their WebMD.
Sure, they do.
Now, hey, I think I have.
To which I say,
that's what I do.
I'm glad you looked it up. Let's talk about that,
Yeah.
And maybe that's like, this is good information, or this is, you know what, I think information was from this source, and I think that their bias is like this, And there's another study that says this, right? So this might be a better answer. Or you know what, sometimes I see this, they bring stuff up, and like, I really hadn't thought about it that way. Let me think here. And then I might change my mind, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I've done that, where I looked at it, and it's like, that's an interesting differential. Let's check it out,
Give me an example. What's something that you're like, wait, that really did change my mind?
I can't, off the top of my head, that's a tough one. I do, but I do remember that people have brought stuff in, and I have thought about it, and we tried it out.
Okay.
Usually it's like things like hormonal treatments, rare diseases, and so we just, usually it's some of the like hormone deficiency diseases that are not thyroid, it's the more rare ones, and we talk about it, we do some testing and see. Most of the time it's negative, but sometimes you'll get something that'll surprise you. I'm like, oh, okay, I learned something here.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because there's two things. One is I've heard about hormone therapy, and specifically for women, because there's times in our lives where our hormones get out of whack sometimes, or we need to regulate. What's your thoughts on that? And do you see this, and what's the trend that you see?
There's two kinds of hormone therapy. The kind that because you're deficient in something, let's say you had to have your ovaries removed because you had cancer, right? But you're only 25. So you would need hormone replacement therapy so that you wouldn't go through menopause a little too early, right? Or you want to preserve your uterus so that maybe if you have IVF later, it'd still be viable, right? So, of course, that's replacement of something you don't have. Or your thyroid just burned out and you need something. Or your pancreas decided to quit early and you need insulin, right? That's replacement. The second kind of hormone therapy is what I call looking for the fountain of youth. Let's say you're a guy of a certain age and maybe your libido is just not what it used to be, and your energy, and you go and work out at the gym and you just can't lift as much, and you don't see the gains you used to, and you're gaining more fat, right? Then you go and ask for growth hormone or ACTH or testosterone, things like that.
Do they just come in like, hey, doc, I need enhancement here? And do you just write the prescription?
It's like, what are you looking for? And why do you want it, right?
But then what does it matter? Why? Isn't that
it does. Because if you're looking to fill something in your life.
Wouldn't you still write the prescription though?
No.
No?
No.
Wouldn't you have to as a doctor? Like, hey, I kind of want this, and you're the doctor, so I'm here, write it.
Actually, no. The Hippocratic Oath says, first do no harm. And if somebody wants testosterone, they already have normal testosterone levels, and you give them testosterone, what'll happen? Okay. Well, you can develop cardiomyopathy. Your heart's a muscle like any other. It gets too big, then all of a sudden you get heart failure. You may increase your risk of prostate cancer. You might become psychotic. You might grow a little more acne than you should and have mood swings. So, it's like, it's not.
But if that's a chance you're willing to take?
No. No, I'm not. So, no, because it's like, you cannot knowingly give somebody poison. You can't knowingly kill somebody.
I'm glad you have that ethic.
That's your oath, That's your oath, and you got to stick to it. You can't just give folks stuff because they throw a whole boatload of money at you and they want you to do it. I'm here to serve you, right? To a certain extent, right? But service in what?
You're like, not really.
Well, I'm here to service you in the benefit of your health.
Yes.
Not in the benefit of your looks necessarily, right? And if your quality of life is that, let's say you have erectile dysfunction and I know that Viagra won't hurt you, I'll give it to you, right? But if you ask me for something that I know is going to hurt you, I'll tell you that and I won't do it. If you're obese and you need to lose some weight, and I know you have type 2 diabetes, and I know you could stand to lose some few pounds, and I know that you're trying diet and exercise. Would it be against my oath to give you medicines to help you lose weight then? No. As long as I check your blood pressure and make sure it's not hurting you.
Are there medicines that we could take to help us lose weight?
Yes, there are.
Wait, what?
There are so many. You don't need to see me for this one. There are many doctors who work in obesity clinics and weight loss clinics that will certainly prescribe you medicines to help you lose weight. I know what those medicines are, and I have used them in some of my patients, that it's medically necessary. Mm-hmm. But I do not want to convert my practice to a weight loss clinic. We don't want people going
to your practice.
Do not come to me for a weight loss clinic. That's not what we're here for. We're here for your health,
But the drug exists, is what you're saying.
There are several classes, yes.
Okay, got it.
Familiar with them all.
What do you see as trends right now in healthcare?
There's a couple of trends. One is in the delivery of healthcare. Healthcare has kind of gone through a wave of consolidation. When I got out, like 25 years ago, 80% of doctors were independent practitioners, or they were just in a small group of 5 or 6 guys. Now, 80% of physicians are employed. And when I first came out, there was no such thing as nurse practitioners or physician's assistants.
Really?
Yeah. The mid-level providers just
didn't exist.
And now, when you get to Medicare age, you'll probably see a PA or a nurse practitioner for your primary care more so than you'll see a physician. So that's the trend, is that the delivery of care is going to skew less towards physicians delivering it and less towards independent practitioners, more towards you'll be a member of a large group, like AMITA or Advocate or DuPage Medical Group. You'll see delivered care by more mid-levels with physicians supervising them, and sometimes physicians when it gets a little more complicated. That's the delivery part. The second part is where people decide to get their medical information from. They'll get it from one avenue is through their physicians or PAs or traditional medical places, but they'll also get it through the internet. They'll also get it through social media, things like that. And it'll be more fragmented. And then finally, it's like, who's paying for all this? I think that you're going to see a consolidation in the payers as well, too. There's a few insurance companies right now, and who knows, maybe one day it'll just be one payer. And so I see that maybe happening as well, too. So those are the big trends, I think.
How do you feel about those trends?
As far as the delivery of care thing, I think we're going to need more providers because the population's aging anyway, and you're going to need more people there to care for them. I mean, no matter how good you are, you can only see so many people in a day.
Yeah.
The government's simply not making any more residency seats, or simply not expanding the medical schools that much to do it. And
is that a good thing?
Well, here's the cold math. It takes 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency to make one doctor, right? And how much does that cost? Probably about $500,000. To make a nurse practitioner, you go through like 4 years of college and 2 years of college and 2 years. So it may 4 to 6 years, and you're done, right? So it costs half as much, and they could pay them half as much too then.
Would you recommend people who are wanting to get into the medical field to go into a PA program versus a doctor program?
Think of what you want to do. Being a physician is going to be a huge time commitment. And if you have another career already, if you already have a family, it's going to be a strain. Let's say you want to have a family later on. Maybe being a neurosurgeon might be a tough call. It'd be really, you're going to be married to your job. Yeah. But you know what? Let's say you want to care for people. You do have a heart for people. You do have the smarts to do this and stuff like that. You don't have to become a doctor. Yeah, you're right. Being a nurse practitioner or a PA is a very good way to care for folks and make a good living and still serve the community and do stuff like that without having maybe to sacrifice as much of your life. And I think we do need those people there to care for those folks.
Do you wish you would have had that program when you were going through school?
Maybe, but I think I still would have ended up where I am because I really wanted to know more about it anyway. And it's a more intensive program, and I had the chance to do it. I was single, so I didn't have a family to have to worry about, and so I had the opportunity. So yeah, I don't regret doing this.
What's your greatest joy in life?
My greatest joy in life? I think the greatest joy in life is to get to live my life with Delia and watch us grow old together with our family and watching them develop and getting to be there to be a positive influence most of the time. So that's, and it's kind of one of the greatest joys, just watching you guys grow up.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I mean, my sister and I, we're basically middle-aged now.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
I'm middle-aged.
Oh, you're old.
I don't mind it either. I like getting the chance to get old and do this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I get to see you guys develop, and I get to see the grandkids.
Yeah.
So, you know what? That's a great privilege to be able to do that. So
I love that. What would you like to be remembered for?
All right. Well, I guess it'd be the easiest one to answer is like work-wise, that I've been able to be in the same job at the same place and be successful at it for 25 years in the same spot, right? And I think that my goal is, if I could, to do a good job and make a positive impact as many folks as I could in one spot, play for the same team my whole career and retire in the same place at the same job. That I think that's a rare and wonderful thing to be able to say you did, because then you leave behind a body of work and with strong roots in the ground that you said that you can look back on and be really proud of it. And that's what I am most proud of professionally. Personally, and it's the same thing I'd like to be remembered for, is when we all got together as a family, even though we were totally different people, totally different backgrounds, nobody expected, if you were putting odds on us in Vegas and it's like, would these people ever become a family or something like that, nobody would ever bet on us, right? To have people look back on us and say, you know what? It's when Jason and Delia got together and the families all came together, that their names, their family would be mentioned in the same kinds of families when they talk about like the big families, like the Rockefellers or the Kennedys or something like that.
Yeah.
They would, maybe not the same strata, but still, when people think about like a great family, they think about us. And if I could leave that as our legacy, that we would always be thinking of our family first, that would be something,
Yeah.
I think that would be worth more than anything I think of.
I was just going to ask you, what does family mean to you?
A family is a group of people that share a common love for each other and will do anything to make heaven on earth for each other here.
Very well put. Very well put, Jason. Okay. I think that's about it. I don't know if there's anything else I should, I think that's it.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for having me on here and making me your first official podcast.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for listening to Tuesdays with Andrea. There are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I appreciate you making the time to listen to mine. If you like this show and want to know more, check out TuesdaysWithAndrea.com, or please leave a review on iTunes or drop a line in the YouTube comments section. Until next time, please stay kind in your mind, nice on the web, and stay hella hopeful in your heart.